Is Alan Hyde, and tonight we are joined by a very familiar guest, John Walker, LPC. How are you
Hello,
doing?
how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you doing,
Oh,
sir?
just great. Good to
Good.
be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. So John and I were talking prior to the show, and tonight we're going to get into just kind of wherever this topic takes us. But I thought it was a brilliant topic for tonight, which is owning or taking our sober place in the world.
Yeah.
Where would you like to start with that, John?
Well, it's something that it took me a while to realize personally. Of course, I'm in recovery myself. I've got 17 years from alcohol primarily. And, it took me a long time to realize that it existed. Because there's probably a long period of time where I couldn't conceive of myself not drinking. Yeah, and it's like one of those things where you feel as though you don't have a right to go take your place without it.
Sure.
Just sort of, and it's insidious that way.
Yeah.
It's like, they say our disease is progressive. And that was really my experience with it. Weekend drinker for a while, and then I was a musician for a long time, and and that's kind of, vocationally, it's like places try to pay you with drink. So it's like that, and then just slowly but surely, it's like the first step of the 12 steps. We admitted we were powerless, and our lives have become unmanageable, and that powerlessness is kind of up on you, and then the unmanageability is right behind it. But it also takes a little while, so you just sort of wind up in this place where it's so integrated into your life that you can't think of not doing that.
Yeah. I was talking with a client earlier this week, and he was sharing how, like, when he drives through LA, it's like billboard after billboard after billboard is substances, gambling, sex, drugs, rock and roll.
Yeah.
And when he was prior to his 12-step journey in Alcoholics Anonymous, it was the only thing that he could focus on. He would see it all the time, and then his recovery changed his perspective. It's not that he doesn't see it, he just doesn't dwell on it anymore.
Yeah.
I thought that was really encouraging.
Yeah, well, and I think the very first part of kind of taking our sober place is there's in fact, talking with a client this week, that I think we get to the point where we kind of feel as though we're out running in the open field. It's like, wow, I actually do have this. It's been 60 days, 90 days, however long it's been, and it's not a reflex anymore.
Yeah, there's an axiom, and I'd like to hear more from you on this, of like when we embrace or teach our clients to about serenity, peace.
Yeah.
There in Alcoholics Anonymous, they talk about being happy, joyous, and free, right? And I think a lot of people in society get so focused on like the happy and joyous part, but the freedom is what's so important in that.
Yeah.
Because we can get trapped in our mind. I mean, how often do we work with clients across all of the spectrum of mental health, and this is the prison cell?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's the thing where we manufacture what feels like joy and what feels like happiness. And, and it's, that can kind of be a misnomer too, which is also the part of it that's insidious, because not everything is, just a dump, or at least I'm lucky that was my experience. Kind of like they say in the rooms, I was pretty high bottom drunk, so, I didn't
said high bottom drunk?
High bottom drunk, yeah. Yeah, I was lucky. I didn't have the state of Texas insisting I come to AA.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of those things, didn't hurt anybody, which was the real thing.
Yeah, and so, for those listening along, just as I'm tracking with you, high bottom drunk is when, you haven't actually hit your bottom, the consequences, but somebody else is telling you have to do this.
Well, actually, for me, it was kind of the way I thought of it was that I didn't have very many consequences. I guess another way to say it is I was a really lucky drunk getting to Alcoholics Anonymous when I got sober, because I had, they say in the rooms the yets, I hadn't gone to jail yet. I hadn't wrecked my car yet. Yeah. So I recall I hadn't wrecked my car very badly yet.
Yeah.
I think I flew out a tire one night.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it's and it's just that point where that becomes less of a thing. It's just like you realize that, wow, I actually am sober and the world is okay.
Yeah, it's the lesson of, give it 5 minutes or give it 5 years, your actions have consequences, which the good news on the flip side, like when you step into like our offices or any clinician's office or treatment, is that if that exists, then what must also be true is little small actions that open up doors for me to do things that are better, that must exist as well. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's they're saying we can act our way into right thinking.
Yeah.
And I think that's just about everybody. I think about everybody that walks in the rooms has done the first part of the first step, admitted some powerlessness or some unmanageability, really either side of the first step.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have done that, and it's just, and I think most people just kind of have to hold on. It's like there's another saying in the room, don't leave before the miracle happens.
Yeah.
And to me, that's, which I really try to talk to clients about that quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's like, just be honest. It's what my perspective was. 12-step recovery, you'll sit down and it's going to make not much sense at first, and it will begin to make sense. So please, if you're, because I can't count the number of clients I've had that, so how'd you like AA? How'd you like, the couple other 12-step programs, Celebrate Recovery? How'd you like that? It's like, I didn't get it. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going back. I didn't get it. And the thing is, it takes more than once.
Yeah.
So it's like you just kind of got to hang on and wait for it to take hold.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you relate to this too, but like even in my clinical practice, when I get a new intake, I always educate, like, you better buckle up. We're here for the long haul.
Yeah.
And there's those who can tolerate that, and when they do really well, and those who are looking for a little bit of a different approach. But it's those, especially the clients, I think guys like you and I attract, maybe a little rougher around the edges, maybe 12-steppers, that kind of stuff. If they don't commit to consistent action, it's like that's a bulk of the battle of them taking their steps into their life.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's like, and we were kind of talking before we got started today, it's like you can, and speaking to people, you can kind of spot who's ready and who's not. And mentions in the AA book that, and I kind of got to paraphrase talking about it, but it's if someone's not ready, spend your time with someone who is.
Yeah.
It's not that we don't care about the person that's not ready, but if you're not ready, you're not ready. And had clients that way before. And it's just, kind of where the truth lies. And just hope those people go off and don't have those heavy consequences. Hope that they avoid those things like I did, and and come back.
Yeah. I have a lot of respect for the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, that whole concept of the section you're talking about, don't bother talking to their wife, if he's not ready. Don't approach him through those people. Share your experience. If he relates to any of it, give him this book.
Yeah.
And then walk away.
And stop.
unless he's ready to talk to you. Because, and I've found, like, and I know you relate to this with your clinical experience. It's like when a 12-stepper is ready to talk, the problem becomes getting them to stop talking.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got one client. It's like, those listeners may not know, they call it the pink cloud. I think it's about at the point where you sort of do understand that you're out in the open field with it, and it's like, wow, this is great. Why doesn't everybody live this way?
Yeah.
And it's like, and it's like I just told him, I said, just ride that thing. There will be something happen eventually, that, it doesn't tarnish it, but, enjoy the beginning of the freedom while you can.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not always a fun ride.
Not always peaches and cream.
Yeah. But there are plenty of gifts. And that was kind of, with my client this week, that's what we were looking at. Is like, I've been working with him for years, and when he first came in, I mean, talk about, he would cuss at me, call me names. He was in it, and he had snuck through the cracks onto my schedule, because I have a very firm, you need to be sober for 90 days before I take you into private practice. So like, if you're still using, you need to go to treatment first.
Yeah.
And he lied on his intake, and the first session, I was like, you are a liar.
You are busted.
Yeah, but I stuck through with him because I was like, well, first of all, I'm a bit rebellious myself, so I had a little bit of respect for it. I was like, you
Yeah.
clever son of a guy. How did, like, I was kind of curious, like, how did you get,
How'd you make it through this? Yeah.
yeah, it's like these aren't technically easy questions to get through, and I have a whole team that helps me schedule. So it's like, how did you get through this? So I had respect kind of for how rebellious he was. So I put up with him, but it quickly became months in when he committed to recovery from putting up with him to watching the miracle happen.
Yeah.
And we were talking about that when he had finally started to fall off that pink cloud and just settling into his life in recovery.
Yeah.
And to be able to recognize, he was saying, I had a really rough weekend, but my sponsee just celebrated a year. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, what a gift.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It's like this guy who's just a freaking knucklehead, and he's guiding people to the promised land. You know?
Yeah.
It's a powerful thing.
Yeah, it really is. And it's, yeah, it's just a really cool thing when you see somebody that's had lots of trouble. You know, it's like, it's kind of that point where you stop hearing the things that bust those people, so to speak. You know, it's like you stop, it's like, wow, you're not trying to put one over on me anymore.
Yeah.
You're not telling me that you didn't drink when I can tell you're drunk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like you're not doing that anymore.
Yeah.
And then you start hearing the things that sound familiar from the other side. You know, it's like, yeah, you know, I feel better. Things are beginning to feel better in my relationships.
Yeah, trust can finally start to be built because you built it with yourself.
Yeah, and it's and you know, a lot of people, I've got, you know, lots of clients where that's kind of hard to build back.
Yeah.
You know, trust. You know, a lot of people, you know, we don't intentionally burn bridges, but you know, it's conditioning. It's like, well, I was Al-Anon also. My first wife died of alcoholism back in '97. You know, so I'm pretty familiar with the dynamic involved. You know, and it's like, you know, it takes a while to get the trust back because I can remember when I didn't trust.
Yeah. Well, this is an important piece too. So for those listening, because we get a wide range of viewers, could you describe just briefly your understanding of the program of Al-Anon?
Well, the very root of Al-Anon to me, and you know, and I'll be honest, and when I attended Al-Anon, the steps were a little. It wasn't. It may be because I had such a need for it, and on the AA side, that it all clicked with what was going on with me, and I was on the Al-Anon side before I got to personal recovery, and then afterwards it was still, you know, the steps were kind of. It wasn't such a straight line from A to B, you know, but I know a lot of people get real benefit from the steps. The thing that I walked away from Al-Anon that helped the most was the 3 C's. We didn't cause it, we can't control it, and we can't cure it.
Yeah. Which you're giving the hints as to who's Al-Anon for.
Oh, it's for the families.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Family and friends of
Family and
alcoholics.
friends, yeah. And, you know, they're the people, the alcoholic ones, hurting the most.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were saying you found your path through that program as well?
Yes. You know, and it's kind of what kept my sanity. Ultimately, my alcoholic, so to speak, didn't get sober.
Yeah.
Did for 2.5 years, went back out, and for the last time. You know, and I think the main thing that helped me with Al-Anon is that probably, even though I wasn't in personal recovery then, you know, it's like I tell people, imagine my aggravated surprise when 10 years later I needed to be in the rooms myself.
Yeah.
I actually probably did back in the day, but, you know, it took me a while to get there. But the thing that Al-Anon did for me was that maintained my sanity. Very much so, because, you know, I've been able to do some treatment center work, you know, and that's the first thing. I had a few clients where they ask us to talk to the families, you know, and it'd be the family session. You know, I'd sit down and say, the first thing you got to realize is this flies in the face of all reason. You know, and it's like that, you know. You come in and ask me, well, you know, why does Robert, you know, why does he keep drinking? You know, we've already told him, we're about to throw him out of the house. You know, we found it again. You know, we found a spot again. You know, why does he keep doing that? It's like, because this flies in the face of all reason.
Yeah.
Powerlessness and unmanageability, and he's trying not to, but he's doing it anyway.
Right. Cunning, baffling,
And powerful. Yeah, that's right. We don't have any idea, and and I think that's the thing that helped me the most too, or maybe helped me in the long run, and probably helped me be gentler to my first wife over time, is that, I understood pretty quickly that alcoholism's a disease. It's like got recognized by the American Medical Association in 1960.
Yeah.
As a disease. But, and there's, some debate about it. And some people, it's like I'll get clients that are on that side of things, so to speak. And they'll go, I don't believe that. That's not a disease.
Well, yeah.
I believe it is, because, my first wife, we were married 12 and a half years. I loved her. She loved me. And I would swear to you and I sitting here today that she would never lie to me about anything. And I still believe that to be true, with the exception of drinking.
Yeah.
Which she did over and over, and got cunning, baffling, and powerful, got really cunning with it. And that's the only way I could fit that into my head.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple things from what you were saying. It's like with the lying, it's like, because I work with a lot of family members of alcoholics too.
Yeah.
And, go figure. I probably won't directly break my anonymity, but I'll just say here, I'm in the rooms as well. And, one of the things we learn in the Al-Anon side is like, not to have the wool pulled over our eyes anymore.
Yeah.
With the compassion. It's like when the lies are there, the drinking, or the drinking, the lies, they're right behind each other,
Yeah.
And, it's funny because I also identify the alcoholism as a disease. It meets all the criteria that medical professionals use for the disease model. But the old adage or the joke is like, well, why can I accept my loved one who has cancer? Well, because these are just the symptoms. But with the alcoholic, they have the symptoms, and then they go through my purse, they steal my keys, they get in the car, they steal the car, they drive down the street, crash it into the wall.
So they can carry the symptoms out further.
Yeah.
Yeah, so get more cancer.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's hard to embrace, when someone you love is doing things that defy all reason.
Yeah, and to me it's and it just left. You get old and the bird flies around in a circle, and it just left. What I was gonna say.
Yeah.
But
the idea just floated off.
Just gotta float it up into the ether.
Yeah, we'll catch it. It's floating around up there somewhere.
It comes back most of the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's and the lying, it's just that's what it came back. See, it lands.
Yeah.
Shame.
Yeah.
Shame is a big part of addiction.
Let's pause on this one for a moment, right? Because the big two, shame and guilt.
Yeah.
You and I know the difference, and I would say like the felt difference in the rooms too, when you're working with a client. But how would you describe it to the listeners, like the difference between guilt and shame?
Well, I think give credit where credit's due. Brene Brown, which I don't know if your listeners are familiar with, but in our field, she's a social work professor at the University of Houston, and kind of second coming of Dr. Phil, which,
sure.
well, anyway, I know nothing. But she has a great line about it. It's like, guilt is we did something wrong, shame is we are wrong as human beings. And what I add to that is, by definition, we're not shameful. We're not wrong as human beings because we landed on the planet and took a breath.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like she says with it. It's like, what's the first thing we do with people that, I know I drank to cover shame. And it's like, and what's the first thing we do with people in recovery sometimes? It's like, aren't you ashamed of yourself? Like, you should be ashamed of yourself. And all variants of that phrase. A lot of people don't take the exact verbiage. It's like, oh, damn, that's shameful. I did that again. It must just be me. Don't they know I'm an F up already? And you just feel that way, which reinforces the thing about not being able to take your sober place in the world.
Yeah.
Because if you're that big a screw up, there must not be one for me.
Yeah.
But the thing is, in the room you find it. There actually is one.
Yeah, it's both in my practice and in my personal life to watch people embrace that while I was embracing what I needed to do as a loved one affected by it. It is so powerful. Just the aspects of watching people separate that shame, be able to make amends. I've always kind of fancied the amends process too. It's not about saying sorry. It's about changing your behavior.
Yeah.
And that just is always fit really well in my view of the world. It's like you could look me in the eyes and say you're sorry, but if you do the same thing,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's like fool me once, man.
Well, and a lot of people talk about that, in therapy, if it's a family member, it's like, and the thing I'll tell them is, as addicts, we're powerless, but we're not helpless.
Yeah.
We're not helpless to the point where, the other analogy is, some people, understand they have the disease and are unwilling to go do the chemo. It's like having cancer and, turn the chemo down.
Yeah.
And in our case, that's also part of the disease. That's one of the first things I heard in the rooms when I was in recovery. It's like, it's the only disease you'll ever have in your life that'll tell you you don't have it. It's like, man, you're fine. You're good. You're good.
Mm-hmm.
Here, have another beer. You're good.
Yeah. It's the only one that would be completely content. How would I put this? Like, you got the cure and it's still waiting for you. It is right there. It's completely content stealing the last 3 seconds of your life. I was talking with a client about that the other day of like, say you're on your deathbed and you're already taking all your meals as liquid and someone asks you what your last meal is going to be, or, it's like, well, your sponsor would tell you it better not be alcohol.
Yeah.
Right? And we were kind of talking about it from a spiritual perspective. It's like whatever you conceptualize or think of, like whatever's evil in the world, it's like you kind of got to turn the gears a little bit of like, why would this thing be completely eager to take the last 3 seconds of your life? What's in it for whatever that is?
Yeah.
It's a fascinating concept, but I think the part that always cues me into that, like with the spiritual side of it in the clinical setting, is like people change when they make those choices, right? Their behaviors change.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of like we're saying, act your way into right thinking. And then I think it just kind of, that and our sober place in the world kind of wind up going hand in hand.
Yeah.
It's like the old way of thinking about things, it's kind of goes away. It's not necessary any longer.
Yeah.
Which I think is really what I found.
What is necessary, John, at that point?
Spirituality.
Say more.
Yeah. Well, it's like to me, and I was talking to a client about this the other day. To me, it's a big difference between spirituality and religion. I heard a good line the other day, religion's for people that are afraid to go to hell, and spirituality's for folks who've already been there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my experience, because I was raised, I wasn't raised super strict religiously, but enough where, honestly, it did add to my shame, when I, came to begin to drink, and to me, it's logical mind versus emotional mind. It's a part of what's called dialectic behavior therapy. And the idea behind it is, it's kind of one doesn't work well to the exclusion of the other. If we're just driven by emotion, we're, unruly. We can't be in public because God knows what we're going to do. Those things, and complete logic doesn't work either. It's like I heard when I was in undergrad years and years ago, God is love, love is blind, Stevie Wonder is blind, therefore Stevie Wonder is God. So that trails off after a minute.
Yeah.
Now, the truth be told, if it's Stevie, I'm good. Because man made some really good records in the 70s when I was a kid. I mean, I'm good. But seriously, what it feels like to me is, here's this problem. Here it is. It's alcoholism, or really whatever the problem is. And we got the intellect to take it about this far, about towards the middle. And then in my particular case, I thought, it's still not getting done, especially with the alcohol problem. This still isn't getting done. Well, it must be that I'm not praying hard enough. I'm beginning to lead a bad life. You know, it's just be against me. So that started trapping me where that didn't work. You know, when I got to recovery, I couldn't figure out why God was still kicking my butt. You know, because I thought I believed in what I needed to believe. But to me, spirituality is that jumping off point. You know, where it's like none of the rest of this is working. And I don't understand what it is that's going to help me, but it's over here and I just need to let it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like came to believe power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. You know, second step.
Right.
You know, and it's just that. It's just, you know, spirituality to me is the solution for the things that have no solution, that we can't figure out, that we're all the way to the end of our rope with.
Yeah.
You know, God, I'm beginning to, you know, and probably back up a little bit. I had personal consequences. I had friends that were upset, pretty upset with me, you know, and that hurt, you know, and wasn't what I wanted to have happen, you know, and I couldn't figure out why I kept doing that, you know, and it just kind of boxes you into a corner where you get to the jumping off point.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, one place in the book it says we're either going to ride our addiction down to its miserable end or we're going to ask for spiritual help.
Yeah.
And that's finally what I did. I remember, you know, the first sponsor I had, I think I did the first 3 steps together because he and I were looking up at the wall and and back up a little bit. Usually the 12 steps are up on the wall, you know, in most meeting rooms. And we were looking at him and standing there, and he'd just become my sponsor, I think, the week before. And I'm going, I don't get it. You know, I can read all that stuff on the wall, you know, and I understand what the words say, but I do not get it. I don't understand how that's going to keep me sober. Right. And he said, okay, well, follow me out to the car. And he started showing me the stuff, 4th step in the book, you know, because I'd understood my powerlessness and unmanageability, thought a power greater than myself could do it, and I asked for it. You know, it's like turn my will and my life over to the care of my first sponsor, actually, at that point. But,
Sure.
But, you know, but a higher power. What is it they say, if you don't believe there's higher power, go slap a cop?
Yeah.
There's higher power.
Yeah. They willed just one step higher than yours.
Yeah, I was going to say,
But that's higher than yours.
That's higher than yours. Yeah.
Well, you know, and what you're highlighting too, you're giving our viewers a crash course in the 12 steps too, which I find always helpful.
Yeah.
You know, I used to work in treatment centers, and it would always be astonishing to me. Like, here we are, we're working actively. All of the clients here are 12 steppers, and how many clinicians didn't actually even know what the 12 steps were. Like, they couldn't list them.
Yeah.
You don't have to understand them. You should probably know them. You know, and, but I like that you're highlighting this, you know, and also kind of giving the framework of, you know, that section you're talking about in the big book. It says when we're transitioning into step 4, like when I watch clients do this too, it says we leapt or we jumped into immediate action, right? I'm probably butchering the exact sentence, but it's like we got right into action.
Yeah.
That's part of what keeps people sober. It's like you can't flounder anymore.
Yeah.
We've been flopping around and making weird decisions long enough.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's making me smile too, because that's word for word what my first sponsor told me that day. He said, this is a program of action. Yeah. Follow me out to the car.
Yeah.
And started showing me in the big book, you know, the 4th. Yeah. So yeah, it's cool. We should come back to that, because word for word what I heard that day.
Yeah. You know, I like the spirituality piece you're touching on too. I have this one friend. He was telling me how his sponsor, he'll call a sponsor with a problem, and his sponsor will say, okay, I want you to go rearrange your sock drawer. So he'll go rearrange the sock drawer, come back, call his sponsor, complain again, say, okay, I want you to go clean under your bed. Okay, so he goes, cleans under his bed, comes back, he's still complaining. Okay, I want you to clean behind the toilet. He goes, cleans behind the toilet, comes back, still complaining. The sponsor says, all those times when you were down there on your knees, right, fixing the sock drawer, cleaning the bed, you didn't think to pray? You know, and things I would have never thought of, like even as a clinician, right? The power of like the pause, that gives you. You don't have to be like, that's what I love about working with 12 steppers is like, you'll take some of the most agnostic guys you'd ever want to meet.
Yeah.
And they're on their knees praying. And I find it the fucking funniest thing I've ever seen. And that was my one F word for the show, but there you go.
Drop one, yeah. Albert Ellis and Pete Ellis. Yeah. I loved him. But and it's it's a cool thing to understand that difference, because I remember that's probably the first thing I heard that made a lot of sense to me. That particular passage in the book. If you're seriously alcoholic, as we were, we got but two choices. And how's it say it? One's to ride our problem down to its bitter end. The other, accept spiritual help. And I remember grabbing the person by the arm that read it. It's like in one of those meetings where we're studying the big book and talking about it afterwards. Got him to show me where it was. Because I never knew there was a difference. I was pretty sure the God of my understanding was who I had been taught about in Southern Baptist Sunday School.
Fire and brimstone,
and
baby.
He was out to get me because I was a bad kid. And oh, by the way, I was drinking now. Which... makes me think of doing the Last Supper with Kool-Aid. Our Lord communion. I'm sorry. That's what they call it in my church. But
it's I've always liked, because I'll listen to different speakers and even in continued ed stuff where I put the training wheels on and I never took them off.
Yeah.
And I can get down with that because I like a nice smooth ride. I don't want to have to balance. Yeah. You give me some training wheels, I'm going to have a nice easy ride. That sounds great. Give me a sunset. That sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Well, and it's like when I was thinking about it a little bit earlier too. It's like the bump in the road. Kind of like we were talking about. Getting on the pink cloud, and then there's the bump. It's like, a lot of us be pretty significant. We're up on the pink cloud, and then suddenly something really bad happens. Car blows up. Or, in my case, one of those possible consequences from the past came creeping up. And it's like, oh, great. And the thing is, I was able to walk through that sober. And we don't realize that we're able to do that. And I think that's the first real inkling I had of my sober place in the world. Yeah,
it's kind of how we were talking to in the beginning of like, we can see it in the clients because we have a felt sense of doing this work in our own ways. And, there's really something about what you just said that I always try to relay to clients as well, is like, at least... You may have gotten kicked where you didn't like to get kicked, but at least you're sober.
That's right. That's right. Well, it's like I tell people, every day you're sober, you win.
Yeah.
It really doesn't matter how you get there. We can help you get there where it feels better. Where you begin to feel your sober place in the world. But for right now, just don't do it. In fact, I've got one client that says he just hangs on that. It's like I don't think it's actually in the big book anywhere, but it's like, job or no job, wife or no wife, car or no car, X no Y, we don't drink. No matter what, we don't drink. And and that's just, I think, just what it takes at first. We just got to hang on until it starts making sense. I was lucky enough to hang on until I stood there with my sponsor that day. And began to actually really get it. And
for those still hanging on who are listening, the good news is that if you're looking for a 12-step program, you're looking for a recovery, there are promises. If you do these things as outlined in this book, you will get better. And as a clinician, I'm probably preaching to the choir here, but like, what a blessing. It's the funniest thing, because we work in a profession where like I am actively trying to work myself out of a job. And I couldn't be happier to do it. To watch people grow in their lives. I think about like some of the clients I work with. I could get choked up thinking about some of them because I've worked with them for so long, to see the blessings that have come into their life from the promises of that program. It's powerful. It's a powerful thing.
See, what does it say? One of the lines is, we'll instinctively know what to do in situations that used to baffle us. And that was my big one, because I drank out of social anxiety to get drunk and be somebody. And then lo and behold, I found out that you could remove the drink, and I was still somebody. So
Yeah.
that helped
Yeah.
an awful lot.
Yeah. On that note, we're going to take a few minute break here. We will be right back. We'll have an ad up here. John Walker, we'll be right back.
All right, sounds good.
Alrighty, welcome back. We are going to transition into a bit of a discussion here about different types of recovery programs. So if you're listening along, we're going to use this kind of last 10-ish minutes to talk about resources that are available to you guys that John might recommend from the perspective of a licensed professional counselor. So what programs are out there, John, if people are looking for support?
Well, there's quite a few. One is one in particular that comes to mind called Celebrate Recovery, and we're kind of talking about it. For people that aren't super familiar with it, it's like the 12 steps talks about spirituality. Like we've talked about, quite a bit. It's like mentions the word God as we understand Him several times in the 12 steps, and that's kind of purposely done in AA to keep the road wide. Take all. There are people, we're talking about rebellion, and it's a lot of people rebel against that religious part, and it keeps a lot of people out of AA streams. So, they keep the road wide there. But Celebrate Recovery, where it says God as we understand Him, they go ahead and say it's the Christian God.
Yeah, I was going to say Celebrate Recovery, you're predominantly going to find it in Christian churches.
Very much so, yeah. In fact, and I found seems to be larger Christian churches in particular.
Yeah, back home we call them mega churches. I don't know if they call them that out here.
They do.
Yeah.
yeah, for the most part. And Celebrate Recovery also, I've seen their steps, and they condense the 12 steps to 8, but it follows the same principles. Yeah. It's like I've always heard the short version of 12 steps is I can't, God can, I think I'll let Him.
Yeah.
And it's still that same theme in Celebrate Recovery, but it's, much more on point with that.
Right.
And it's funny. What keeps running through my mind is what's called I didn't have to do a thesis in my master's program, but they do a course where you have to kind of, pick out what it is you're going to do.
Right.
And I thought, well, I'll see which has more luck, Celebrate Recovery or AA, and it's like, and wind up writing that, but at first I was going to see which did better, whether it was AA or what's called cognitive behavior therapy and what we do. Right. Thoughts, feelings, and actions, and I thought, this is great. Yeah, I'll publish. That'll be, and then I read there was what's called Project Match.
Yeah.
And it's like, I read one line, Project Match, probably the largest clinical study ever undertaken about, I thought, okay, well, that's out.
Yeah.
I'm going to get an F if I do that. But,
right, yeah. Project Match, it's the one article that I was allowed to use on my dissertation. It's from 2003, right? And when they first started it, but it's the one that they allowed outside of the range of like within the last 5 years.
Oh, no
because
kidding.
it's just the biggest study on those things that we have access to.
Oh, yeah, which kind of leads into to kind of get away from the religious realm, so to speak. What this Project Match studied was which was better 12-step or cognitive behavior therapy. And to back up a little bit, cognitive behavior therapy is used in a lot of different things.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, it's probably, if I just had to purely guess, probably the predominant theory that a lot of people that are in individual therapy undergo, and
Mm-hmm.
what therapists use for the most part are thoughts, our feelings, our thoughts, and our actions are all intertwined, kind of on a wheel. And if we can change one, we have an opportunity to change the others. It'll have an influence on them, and that applies really well, I think, to alcoholism and addiction. Yeah. I remember I was sitting actually in the rooms of AA one time with a friend who had been, trained kind of like you and I are, And he said, well, this is all just applied cognitive behavior therapy anyway. They're just giving us something to think about.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I guess so.
It kind of is. The only conclusive evidence I've ever found in the like synthesizing literature is that
Yeah.
therapy and the 12 steps, they just work really well in conjunction with each other. That's the census, like that, or the consensus is that they work well together.
Yeah. Well, it's like I would tell people too, and when I was doing, wasn't treatment center so much, but I guess shorthand for it, I called it the DWI school. It's like I did in Texas, they'll usually mandate you, won't exactly mandate you to treatment if you have a DWI, but they'll remand you to education.
Yeah.
And I was one of the people doing that particular thing. And I remember telling them, it's like, I got sober through the 12 steps. You're going to hear me talk the 12 steps an awful lot. But I realized it's not the only way to get there. It's just the train the most sober people are on. It's like, go check it out first because it works.
Yeah, when that many people are doing something and it seems to be working out, it's like, maybe I'll check
Millions
it out.
of sober people can't be wrong.
Yeah.
Exactly. But to the flip side of that kind of is, I'm glad CBT exists and is used, as a therapy for that, because there are some people that, they're atheistic people. There's some people that, just they can't get past maybe that difference between religion and spirituality, the two are lumped together. And, and it's fair to say a lot of people by their experiences, they get intertwined to the point where they can't be separated.
Yeah.
And those people, I think, CBT applies to. We've got this feeling that we can't do anything about. What thought can we apply? What action can we take?
Yeah.
And that doesn't necessarily have to be the 12 steps.
Yeah.
It's like if we have that feeling, and what thought can we bring to bear? It's like, it's just all intertwined in it. What I'm thinking is the thought you would bring to bear. It's like, I should go drink, and then it's like, but the last time I did, I passed out in the bathroom. And that the AA book says that we can't call back with sufficient force the shame of our last drunk, or I can't remember exactly what it says, but so it does really tie. But just CBT on its own, kind of doesn't give such a dose of religion, spirituality, and a lot of people respond to that. I had to plead a little bit of ignorance. I know there are, lack of a better way to say it, there are secular treatment programs, smart recoveries out there, and in fact, I had a client that sought that out, and just frankly, I don't know a lot about how that works. I don't know whether they use exclusively CBT or
pretty much. Yeah, it's empirically based intervention. So they'll use CBT, DBT, ACT, things like that, like ACT. I forget what ACT exactly stands.
Yeah,
we could go down this rabbit hole forever.
Yeah, I guess we can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, but smart recovery. I think one of the drawbacks I've always found with smart recovery that you find maybe a little less abrasive in other programs is smart recovery is like they structure it as if like this person is like above you. Is the way I've had clients explain it to me, is like this person has more time and they're going to tell you what you have to do. The same way like, when a client comes and pays us, it's like, but that's the transaction you're getting into. It's like smart recovery is a little bit touchy for me as a clinician on that of like, you're going there for shared experience. It's like, why do millions of alcoholics get sober through things like Celebrate Recovery and AA is the shared experience.
Yeah. And that's it. It's like what that brought to mind is, if that is it, from the, sort of the, not trickle down exactly, but, he knows more than you, so listen to him. He's going to tell you what to do. It's like, it's easy to fall into that as a therapist.
Oh, yeah.
It's like I forget the exact scenario, but I had somebody last week. It's like, they told me to do this, like another therapist. And I'm going, well, not to denigrate the other therapists, but, the way I came up, I don't tell people what to do because I could be wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and it goes to what you're talking about. You know, it's like my experience may not be your experience.
Right.
Yeah. My experience with this religion thing, which, you know, apparently you, Mr. Counselor, it spoke to you. Well, you know, I hated it. I had a bad experience. Maybe I was, you know, mistreated within it,
Yeah.
severely mistreated within it.
Right.
And it does not speak to me at all.
Yeah.
You know, so then, you know, it's like I can't very well tell that person, well, you know, you have to become a believer or you're not going to get sober.
Right.
Because it's not where the truth lies.
Yeah.
Not for them.
Yeah, yeah, you got to meet them where they're at. I think that's why a lot of times when I hear about smart recovery, I'm touchy, is because, you know, in our field, it's like the piece you were touching on is like people have the notion they're going to come to an expert, and they are.
Yeah.
And what they learn is that this expert isn't going to be the expert of you.
Yeah.
I'm the expert of psychology. You're the expert of your life. If we can meet in that middle ground, you're going to build a pretty spectacular life for yourself if I'm the right fit for you.
Yeah.
And in smart recovery, I think, and there's probably people listening to this who go and they're like, this guy needs to shut up. But my interpretation of it, I've even sat in the back of the room and one of them is like, this is how it is. You either do it or get out. And it's like, I've never been a fan of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and it's like well, you know what occurs to me is to do it or get out. If you get out, you don't come back, maybe.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, which would be the thing I'd have. And yeah, and like I say, that's just, well, you know, and I think it fits, you know, kind of the inverse of it and what we're talking about. You know, if someone is out there thinking, you know, well, gosh, I'm, you know, been sober 6 years through SMART. You know, and it worked for me, you know, it's like,
well, that's really it, right? It's like, hey, maybe you're the do it or get out type, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So do it or get out.
Yeah, you know, it speaks to you personally. You know, so it's yeah. So I can't remember if we were talking about it before we got started or not, but you know, every day you stay sober, you win.
Yeah. I think that's a perfect cap for just kind of what we're talking about tonight. And, you know, as always, John, we're going to continue these conversations, but for those listening, every day you're sober, you win. So if you needed to hear that tonight, we're glad you're here. John, is there anything you would add to that?
No, I was going to, you know, just put tomorrow after today if possible. Just get to midnight and do it again.
There you go.
Read the shampoo bottle, wash, rinse, repeat.
Yeah.
Start over tomorrow.
Yeah. Now, I've asked you my fun and kooky questions, but I'm going to ask you one again because maybe you'll have a different answer this time. So, as always, let's say you're opening up a mental health theme park.
Yeah.
Right? And you get to choose which ride is going to be built. What's the first ride you're building and why? In this case, it'd be what's the second ride you're building and why?
I don't know. Got to be something to do with Sigmund Freud.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
The magicians?
Well, you know, or I was thinking you have to have your parents with you if you're, whether you're under 18 or not, you have to have your folks with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you like you're going with the clinician?
Yeah, the clinician way, yeah.
What would the ride be? So it'd be a kid's ride?
Yeah, yeah.
And what would be the theme of it? I'm going to really grill you on this.
Let's see. Well, guess you have a big Sigmund Freud head at the end or something.
Like Freud's creepy head? Like
Yeah. Yeah, or what was it in The Wizard of Oz, you know, where the go see the wizard and it's up on the screen.
What would you call it?
Freudian slip. Yeah,
That's a good one. That's good. All right. Well, John, thank you so much for coming on. We'll have to coordinate soon and get you on again.
Definitely love it.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, John Walker, LPC, Breaking the Cycle. We meet here every Friday night, 7 p.m. We will see you next week. We love you.
Take care.